I was once known as Imam Kareem in a small village near Omdurman, Sudan. My voice echoed daily from the mosque tower, calling men to prayer, teaching children to memorize the Quran, and warning them about the so-called Book of the Christians. I believed with all my heart that the Bible was a corrupt book that deceived people. Whenever I found one in the hands of travelers or hidden among the belongings of converts, I burned it without hesitation. I thought I was doing Allah's work. My people respected me and my family was proud. My wife, Amina, was a quiet woman who obeyed me in everything. We had one son, little Yusuf, who was about 9 years old. He was soft-hearted and always asked too many questions I didn't like. When he saw me destroy those books, he once asked why I hated them so much. I told him that the Bible was poison to our faith and that any man who read it would be lost forever. He nodded but looked away quietly. I thought nothing of it, believing my words had silenced his curiosity. But I was wrong. Deep inside that boy, a seed had already been planted, a seed that would one day change everything I believed. What I didn't know was that even as I was fighting against that book, something far stronger than me was already fighting for my soul. One day, a trader passing through our village dropped a bag of goods near the mosque. When I looked inside, I saw it, a small, worn Bible. Without thinking, I took it outside, dug a shallow hole under a tree near my home, and buried it. I said a short prayer, asking God to forgive anyone who read such lies. I left, feeling proud that I had done something righteous. Later that week, I noticed Yusuf often playing near that same tree. Sometimes, when I returned from the mosque, he would run inside quickly as if hiding something. I thought it was childish play, nothing serious. But days later, I found pieces of paper tucked under his pillow, pages from that same Bible. My heart pounded in anger. I shouted at him, demanding to know where he got them. He trembled and cried, saying he found the book buried and that he just wanted to read the stories inside. That night, I could not sleep. I sat under the stars, angry and confused. Why would my son be drawn to something I despised? Why would he feel peace reading what I saw as lies? It was the first time I felt unsure about my own certainty. But my pride would not allow me to admit it. I warned him never to touch that book again, not knowing that soon, that same book would save his life. A few months later, my son fell sick. It began with a fever that refused to go down. We called healers, used herbs, and recited prayers, but nothing worked. Yusuf grew weaker by the day. His eyes turned dull, his voice faint. My wife wept every night and I felt helpless. I prayed harder, fasted for days, and even traveled to another town to seek help from a respected cleric. But when I returned, the boy was worse. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd be truly honored to have you join this growing family of faith and reflection. Every new heart adds something beautiful to our community. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us where you're watching from and share how this journey speaks to your heart. Your thoughts, reactions, and reflections help spark the kind of conversations that inspire faith, healing, and deeper understanding. One night, as I sat beside him, he suddenly smiled in his sleep. I thought he was dreaming. But when he opened his eyes, there was light in them I had never seen before. He whispered that he had seen the man from the book. My heart froze. I wanted to silence him, but something inside told me to listen. He said the man had spoken kindly and that he would get better. Then he fell back asleep, breathing softly like a child without pain. That night, fear and confusion filled me. Who was this man my son saw? Was it an angel? Was it a trick of his mind? I could not understand. I lay awake till dawn, staring at the roof, feeling a strange pull inside me, something I had never felt before. It was as if the book I had buried was calling me out from the ground. The next morning, I walked to the old tree. My hands shook as I dug into the sand. The earth was soft from recent rain, and soon the edge of that small Bible appeared. It was still wrapped in its worn brown cover, the same one I had buried months ago. I sat under the tree and turned the pages slowly. My heart raced as I saw names and words that felt both foreign and familiar. Moses, David, Jesus. I flipped through until my eyes landed on a verse that caught my attention. It said something about life, about resurrection, about hope beyond death. I didn't fully understand it, but it felt alive. I read that passage aloud over my son when I returned home. My wife looked at me in disbelief, but I told her I just wanted to try everything. Then I prayed, not the way I used to, but with my heart trembling. I asked whoever the man from the book was to heal my boy. That night, Yusuf woke up and asked for food. The fever was gone. His face looked fresh, his eyes bright. I held him in my arms and cried like a child. I didn't understand what had just happened, but I knew one thing for sure. The words in that book carried power I could not explain. From that night, something began to stir inside me. I couldn't forget the peace that filled our home after I read that verse. I kept reading secretly when everyone was asleep. Sometimes I felt as though someone was right beside me, guiding me through the words, opening my understanding. He didn't speak in a voice I could hear with my ears, but in whispers deep within. He revealed to me that what I had once called lies was truth. He let me know that the same man my son saw was the source of all life. The more I read, the more my heart softened. I began to see my own emptiness. Years of praying, teaching, and striving had never filled that void. But these simple words brought tears and peace all at once. My heart, once full of anger, was slowly turning into something new. Still, I feared what would happen if my people found out. I was an imam. My entire identity rested on my position. How could I stand in the mosque and preach against a faith that no longer burned in my heart? But the more I tried to resist, the stronger the pull became. One evening, I went to the mosque for the last prayer. As I led the people, the words felt empty. When I finished, I stayed behind alone. The room was silent except for the echo of my breath. I knelt down and wept for the first time in many years. I confessed my confusion, my pride, and my fear. Then, deep in my heart, he told me that it was time to follow him completely. I didn't see any light or hear thunder, but peace flooded my heart like never before. I left the mosque quietly and walked home under the stars. I knew my life would never be the same again. That night, I held the Bible close and told my wife everything. To my surprise, she didn't resist. She said she had seen a dream where a bright man told her that truth was coming to our house. We both cried and thanked the one who had shown mercy to us. From that moment, I knew my journey as an imam had ended, but my walk as a believer had just begun. The next morning, I stood before the elders of the mosque. My voice shook as I told them I could no longer serve as imam. They thought I had gone mad. Some shouted, others begged me to reconsider. But I knew I couldn't lie anymore. I had found truth, and it wasn't in the rituals I had been teaching. It was in the man from the book, the same one who healed my son. I left the mosque compound with nothing but the Bible and a small bag of clothes. My family followed me, unsure of what the future held. We moved from one town to another, facing insults, threats, and rejection. Yet through it all, there was peace. Every time fear tried to rise, that still small voice reminded me that he was with us. Sometimes, people invited me to share my story. I would tell them about the boy who was healed, about the man in the dream, about the book I once buried but later found life in. Many cried. Some believed. I realized that I didn't just leave religion behind. I found relationship. As the years went by, I began traveling from village to village. My message was simple: the truth cannot be buried. I met many people who once hated the Bible like I did. I told them that I too was blind, but now I see. I didn't speak as a scholar anymore, but as a father who had seen mercy firsthand. Everywhere I went, I carried that same Bible. Its cover was torn, but to me it was treasure. Sometimes I met opposition from my old friends. They accused me of betrayal, but I didn't fight back. I just told them that love had changed me. That love had a name, though I rarely spoke it aloud in public for safety. But those who heard me knew what I meant. My son, now strong and healthy, traveled with me. He often smiled and reminded me that it all began under that small tree. Every time he said it, I felt tears well up. Truly, God had turned my curse into a calling. One day, while resting in a small desert village, I thought about everything I had lost and gained. My position, my respect, my home, all gone. But in their place, I found joy, peace, and purpose. The man from the book had not only healed my son but also healed my soul. He revealed to me that his love is not just for one people or one faith, but for the whole world. He let me know that forgiveness is real, and that even those who once fought against him can be changed. I realized that what matters most is not how much we know, but how much we love. I had spent years preaching rules but never knew grace. Now I lived by it daily. Sometimes, when I looked back, I would whisper a quiet prayer under my breath. Thank you for the tree, for the buried book, and for the second chance. Because everything began the day I stopped fighting and started listening. My brothers and sisters, I share my story not to lift myself up, but to remind you that God's mercy reaches even the hardest heart. Never think anyone is beyond saving. I was an enemy of truth, yet He came for me. I buried His word, but He raised it from the ground and made it live in me. Hold tightly to your faith. Love one another deeply. Pray always, even when you do not understand what God is doing. And most importantly, read His word daily. Don't hide it under fear or pride. Let it guide you, shape you, and heal you. For the same word that brought my son back from the edge of death is still alive today. Walk with humility. Forgive freely. Trust God even when the path feels uncertain. Because one day, like me, you will realize that nothing buried by man can stay hidden when heaven decides to bring it back to life.